Was anybody else holding their breath? Because I was the whole time, especially when they were landing. I did not want to see another Dirty 30 situation happen here. You flexing, bro? Hello and welcome back everyone to the video series dedicated show on MTV that is coming for the crown. That's right, we're talking about The Challenge Season 36, Double Agents, Episode 15, and in this episode we learn that Cory has a photographic memory, Kyle confesses he is afraid of his own shadow, and when CT's wig comes off, it's game over. But let's start off where last episode left off, and that was Cory not only stealing Darrell's gold skull, but also stealing Kam as his new partner. Big T and CT are back to being partnered up, and Amber is the rogue agent. And coming back to the challenge house, Big T is saying how sweet CT was back at the crater and wanting to be partnered back up with her, but she's not gonna let him off that easy. Also, there's going to be a new dynamic change in their partnership this time around. The first time around, she was just wanting to make CT happy. She was putting his game before hers, but now times are different. She needs her gold skull and she's putting herself first, as she should. And also moving on to Aneesa, she's worried. This is around the time that she gets thrown into the elimination and is sent home. She doesn't want that happening again, and so she is feeling a little nervous. Speaking of which, we fast forward to the next morning where Kyle and Big T are training each other, and that's where CT is like, look, we're shutting this down. We don't want to see Big T get hurt. And that's when Kyle wants to see Big T get her gold skull, and he's serving his partner Aneesa up on a silver platter saying, hey, if you want to get your gold skull, you want to go up against Aneesa because I'll help you get her into the elimination with you. Big T is feeling conflicted because she is friends with everyone left inside the house, but she knows she has to go in and get her gold skull, so she's gonna have to go against a friend to do it. Now, we get one of my favorite moments out of the whole season. Definitely the highlight of this episode is the hall brawl training between Big T and CT, where they go into a hallway in the challenge house. That's when CT is like stuffing pillows within his like shirt and putting them up and saying like, run at me with all you can. She does it the first time around and like hits him but doesn't move him, and that's when he's trying to get her angry, and that's when CT says, hey, you see the way you hit? That's why I left you the first time. And that's when she comes at him full force and knocks him on the ground. I really enjoyed this moment. This was really, really funny to watch. We move on to later that night where Fessy and Kyle are talking with each other. And that's when Fessy lets it be known that he thinks CT is massively overrated. He's saying that at the beginning of this game, when they heard the twist about switching partners if you win the elimination, CT mentioned that he was gonna get stolen a whole bunch of times. He has not been stolen once. Fessy thinks he's overrated. He thinks he's past his prime, and he is just feeling like CT needs to move over because there's a new dog in town and his name is Fessy. We have another confessional of Nany just saying that she doesn't want to be partnered up with Fessy, which I find funny in the midst of this conversation. We move on to the next morning where the challenge alarm bells are ringing and the challenge has been activated. Everyone has to wake up, get dressed, meet TJ in a field where he is saying that they are going to be playing in this week's daily challenge called Spy Dive, where they're gonna have to jump out of an airplane, have to find a puzzle key, memorize a puzzle key as they're falling gently down to earth. Then they're going to have to run a half mile to their puzzle boards and recreate the puzzle. The fastest team to do this wins it to the double agents, gets all the power, and can send somebody into the elimination who could possibly be sent home right before the finals. So in this week, Kyle and Aneesa get to choose who's gonna be jumping out of the airplane when. Now, I found it very odd that the heats were already chosen and who was gonna be in what heat. So all that Kyle and Aneesa had power over was who was gonna jump out of the airplane first. I don't think it's that much power, but it's power nonetheless. And so the heat one is going to be Leroy and Casey going up against Aneesa and Kyle. They all jump out of this airplane. Leroy is scared, but as they're falling, Leroy is actually feeling like this is beautiful, it's amazing, I'm happy I did this. They all gently land on the ground and then they all line up to run a half mile. Leroy and Casey demolish this half mile easily, and they get to their puzzle board and finish their puzzle before Kyle and Aneesa even get a chance to touch a puzzle piece. Then the Heat 2 get up in the plane, and I found this really funny that Kyle and Aneesa realize that they have Big T jumping out of this airplane first, meaning she is right next to the door that's wide open as this plane is climbing in altitude. I'm not gonna lie, I would be freaking out just as much, if not more, than Big T in this moment. So I would be freaking out if I was having to sit up next to this door that's wide open as this plane is climbing to 15,000 feet. Big T is super scared, but when she's jumping out of this airplane, just like Leroy, she is like feeling like this is a beautiful moment. She's actually having a great time as she is like falling to the earth. And everyone jumps out of this airplane, everyone does this daily challenge, everyone lands safely, they all line up to run the half mile, and Cory and Kam are running at a great pace. They're keeping up with each other for the most part. Fessy is blowing past Nany, leaving her in the dust, but in the aftermath, he's talking about how he stopped multiple times, was trying to like encourage Nany to like run up with him, and then CT is getting frustrated with Big T in this run. Cory and Kam are the first ones to their puzzle. They're putting this thing together, and they get it done rather quickly. Fessy and Nany get to their puzzle boards, and they're only at that puzzle board for like 2 seconds before TJ is blowing that horn saying that Kam and Cory won Heat 2. That's when Big T gets to the puzzle board, and CT is trying to demonstrate that if she would have gotten to the puzzle board and would have gotten to the puzzle board quicker, maybe they would have had a shot to win this thing because he put the puzzle together. He's trying to show her that in the finals, they're gonna have to do better as a team. They're gonna have to put forth a better effort and execution in the finals if they want to run the finals and have a shot at winning. It's not the right time or moment. Big T is feeling like, look, I just faced a huge fear of myself, and you're like taking that moment away from me, and you're making me feel this tiny again. We move back over to TJ, and everyone's lined up for the results. TJ says that there's only 14 seconds separating Cory and Kam and Leroy and Casey of who won this daily challenge, and the winner is Leroy and Casey. They smash this thing. They get their 4th win of the season as a partnership, and they hold all the power. Now, coming back to the challenge house, Kyle is talking to Aneesa going like, look, I'm sorry, this is how I'm gonna have to vote you in. But Aneesa's like, I don't wanna hear that right now. There's still a lot that could happen. We move on later in the night. Big T and CT are talking. CT apologizes to Big T for the way he reacted at the daily challenge about how she performed in that daily challenge, but turns it into a positive and is like, hey, how about we train together to get both of us stronger for the finals to where we both are ready and better equipped to win the finals. We move into a nice montage of everyone dancing for the 80s party that's happening in this episode. I love the 80s theme. I love the 80s montage. We move into the party scene. Once in the party, that's when Aneesa and Cory are talking about the votes, and she wants to get somebody else to be the house vote. If she's gets somebody else to be the house vote, she's has a fighting chance of staying out of the elimination, as she's trying to get the votes onto Nany, but it's gonna be really difficult. She knows it's an uphill battle, but she's praying that there is a chance. And it's also interesting to point out that in the aftermath, Aneesa talks about how Nany was actually saying a day before the deliberation that she was tired of this game, she was packing up her stuff, and she was talking about maybe wanting to have the house vote be her. And so Aneesa was like, oh my gosh, that's a glimmer of hope that maybe she would want the house vote to be her, and then she can be into the elimination, and then she could fight for her spot, and I could stay out of the elimination because I really want to be here. But we find out in this episode that that is totally something that she changes her mind on. But we'll put a pin on that as we move into Fessy versus CT. This is big, right? Fessy, I don't know what happened with him this episode. He may have had one too many shots, maybe 1 or 2 more Coors Lights than what he's used to, but he has a buzz. He's feeling himself. He goes up to CT basically saying like, you're good. You had your time, but now you need to move over because I'm coming for that crown. I don't know why? I don't know what got into Fessy, because it's not like he won today's daily challenge. He's not the double agent. He hasn't won jack since the first 2 weeks of this season. So right now he's feeling really good about himself for some reason. He's wanting to talk smack to CT, get him riled up, even though in the confessionals and in the aftermath he's trying to be like, I was just trying to give him a compliment and he turned it around on me. No, dude, that's not at all what happened. You were trying to provoke him. You got what you wanted. You poked the bear, and guess what? The bear's coming for you. Are you flexing, bro? Are you flexing? Now, I'm not gonna go too depth into my own opinions about the Fessy versus CT overrated thing. I'm gonna go more into that in the Friday Tiny Table Talk, but I will lay down the arguments that were presented in this whole debacle, right? So Fessy is talking about how CT is past his prime. Fessy's coming for CT's crown. Step aside. You had your shot. And he even brings up like 2005. Like, what are you talking about? CT brings up that he's won 2 challenges fairly recently. Fessy's like, who was in those finals? It's like, bro, have you not seen the show before? Do you not have Paramount Plus? The argument that Fessy was trying to present and like gaslight CT and being like, who was in those? Like, was it all like has-beens in those ones? It's like, what are you talking about? He won fairly recently. Like, get off your high horse. I'm getting too into it. Like I said, I'm not gonna get too in depth with it, but it does get to a point where voices are raised and everyone has to get in between Fessy and CT. We get vintage CT here. Like, I thought he was gonna start smashing heads and eating them. They finally come together at the end of it saying, let's agree to disagree, let's just run this thing out. Now we move on to the next morning, where I like how Nany classifies both Fessy and CT. She talks about how Fessy is kind of like a person that would hire an assassin to do his dirty work for him, whereas CT will absolutely try to murder you with his bare hands. And we've seen that firsthand. I love for this to be foreshadowing a Fessy versus CT elimination. We're gonna have to wait and see if that actually is the case, but we move on to the deliberation, where at the deliberation, that's when Big T is like, I wanna be the house vote, please let me be the house vote. And that's when Aneesa's like, look, if you're the house vote, Leroy's gonna send me in because he's not gonna send in Nany, and he's definitely not gonna send in Kam. So it's gonna be me versus you. And that's when Kyle is like, not coming to Aneesa's defense. He's basically saying like, if it's gonna be, it's gonna be. There's really nothing we can do about it at this point. What we can do is that whoever wins, if Aneesa wins, you gotta switch partners. So switch partners from me if you win, and we can get some protection. And everyone turns that into Kyle trying to pass off Aneesa before the finals. Aneesa feels mad disrespected. I think everyone took it a little bit too far. She's already knows she's gonna be going into the elimination. She has to get over the hurdle of the history that she's been presented in the challenges in her challenge career of going into the elimination right before the finals. So she's already having to get over the barrier of not only being thrown into the elimination, but also getting over the mental barrier of having to win and being thrown in right before the finals, where she's lost so many times. Everyone votes, and Leroy and Casey goes into their secret deliberation. They see CT and Big T are the compromised agents. They get to see who voted for them, and everyone votes for Big T and CT, except for Kyle, who votes for himself and Aneesa. And this is where Leroy is like, look, we're gonna have to throw in Aneesa. I hope she understands, but there's no other way. Casey agrees, and then we move back into the house where the alarm bells are ringing, and that's where the elimination has been activated. Everyone gears up, heads down to the crater, where they see that it is going to be the 3rd time they're gonna be seeing fire escape, and Aneesa's thinking, my goodness, not this elimination. Anything but this elimination. And realistically, I agree with her. Out of all the eliminations we've seen, I feel like she has a great shot at all of them, except for this one. TJ invites CT and Big T down to the crater floor. Leroy and Casey say Aneesa and Kyle's name. They greet him down there. TJ says it's a women's elimination. They all get strapped up. TJ blows that horn, and Big T already has the momentum. She has the motion, and she wins this rather easily as she has the momentum down. She has the technique down, and Aneesa just has a real tough time getting over the first hump. She finally gets her feet over the first hump, but it's too little too late, as Big T was already down on the one side and already came back, got over the last hump, and was getting through the finish line. Big T wins her first elimination in her challenge career. Aneesa is sent home right before the finals yet again, as Aneesa, Big T, CT, and Kyle are warming their hands next to the fire. That's when Kyle is trying to tell Big T, look, change partners. You cannot stay with CT. If you stay with CT, next day, if we're not going to the finals and we have yet another elimination going on, they're gonna send you and CT, me and Amber down together. And we can change that. We can get protection if you switch partners right now. And Big T even says, I don't know if I'm gonna stay with CT, maybe I'll go with Fessy. And we get to TJ asking her whether she wants to stay with CT, go with Kyle, or pick anybody else except for Leroy. And Big T looks over at CT, says, do you wanna run the finals with me? And CT says, let's run this thing out. They fist bump, and that's when Kyle and Amber are paired up together. And at the end of this episode, everyone is hanging off of every syllable of TJ's words. Every time he speaks, everyone is getting closer and closer, trying to see if he's gonna say, pack up your stuff, we're going to the finals. And that's when TJ says, but we're far from done, and turns around and heads out, and everyone falls down. I really like the moment that everyone falls down. They thought this was it, but it is not it. But it is it for this episode. The episode is done. But what did you think about this episode? Let me know that in the comment section below. What did you think about the daily challenge? What did you think about Aneesa going in against Big T? Who are you rooting for? Let me know that in the comment section below. What do you think about the Fessy versus CT overrated talk? Who's the real overrated one? Let me know that in the comment section below. And do you think Big T should have switched partners from CT and gone with, say, Fessy? Let me know that in the comment section below. And remember, I'm gonna be taking some comments from this video's comment section and reading them in tomorrow's Tiny Table Talk. I'm gonna take a good amount of them because I think there was a lot to say and there was a lot going on in this episode. So please write down any and all comments down in the comment section below. But thank you so much for watching. While you're down there, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be back really, really soon with more Challenge 36 Double Agents content, more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.